everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Azanat. In this video clip, we will talk about chapter 4, compounding. So, let's get started. In many languages, compounding is the most frequently used word formation process of making new words. Compounding is a process of the combination of at least 2 free morphemes into new words. Simply speaking, compounding consists of the combination of 2 words, 2 free morphemes, to become one new word that has a new meaning. We can say that when a new compound is formed, the compound words that we have, they have a new meaning that may or may not be different from the 2 elements that compose the compound words. Also, the meaning of the compound is considered to be institutionalized or lexicalized. That is to say, the meaning of the compounds will be understood as a whole, as one word. We will not separate the element or the free morphemes that we use to form the compound in order to understand the meaning. For example, the word blackboard. This structure will be a compound if and only if we understand it as one word. That is to say, if we interpret the word blackboard as a large board that we use in teaching, no matter what color it is, in this way, we can consider the structure blackboard as a compound word. But if we separate the structure blackboard into 2 free morphemes, black and board, and then we interpret them separately as a board that has a black color, then the structure blackboard is not a compound word because the meaning is not understood as a whole, as a lexicalized, as an institutionalized. So, in this case, the structure blackboard will be considered as a noun phrase instead. Another example, the structure greenhouse. If we interpret the meaning of this structure as a glass building in which plants that need protection from cold weather are grown, then it is a compound word because we understand the meaning as a whole word, not a separate word. But if we interpret it as the house that is green, then this structure will be just a noun phrase because we interpret the meaning of the 2 free morphemes separately. Move to the next topic. We can classify compounds into 2 ways. First, by their functions, and second, by their relationships. Let's have a look at compounds and their functions first. When we talk about compounds and their functions that we mention here, we refer to parts of speech that the compounds could have. There are 4 parts of speech that the compounds can be functioned, which are compound noun, compound verbs, compound adjectives, and the last one is compound adverbs. The example of compound noun could be classroom, ice cream, keyboard. Or we can form compound nouns by using free morphemes that do not belong in the part of speech. Now, for example, make believe. Make believe, this word, which are formed by verb and verb. Or intake, outcome, downpour, which are preposition and verb. That is to say, the part of speech of the elements or the free morpheme that we use to form the compounds do not imply the function of the whole compounds. Simply said that the part of speech of the compounds do not rely on the part of speech of its elements. We also have compound verbs such as sharpshoot, dry cleaned, whitewash, or compound adjectives. For example, red hot, gray greened, high rise, quick change. For compound adverbs are mostly formed by the way of conversion from compound adjectives. For example, overseas stop to study overseas, or adding suffix ly to compound adjectives. For example, breathtaking to breathtakingly, or upright into uprightly. Move to the next topic. From classify compounds by their function, we also can classify compounds by their relationships that the elements in the compounds share together. We can categorize compound and their relationships into 2 types, which are semantic relationships and morphological relationships. Let's start by semantic relationships first. Semantic relationships can be classified into 3 subtypes, which are endocentric compounds, exocentric compounds, and copulative compounds. For endocentric compounds are said to be hated compounds. That is to say, endocentric compounds are the compounds that have hate. The meaning of the whole compound refers to one of its elements, and the element that the meaning of the whole compound refers to is said to be the head of the compounds. For example, windmill, which means a building with cells that turn in the wind and generate power. The meaning of this compound refers to one of its elements. As you can see, the word building refers to mill. Mill means building. So mill is the head of the compound. Then we can say that the meaning of the whole compound windmill is identical to one of its constituents, which is mill. That's why windmill is endocentric compounds. Or another example, the word icy cold, which the whole meaning refers to very cold. So the meaning cold is identical to the free morpheme cold, which is one of the elements in the compound icy cold. Turning now to another subtype of semantic relationship, which is exocentric compounds. In contrast to earlier topic, endocentric compounds, exocentric compounds are the compounds that do not have the head, or we can call it as headless compounds. That is to say, the whole meaning of the compounds do not refer to one of its elements. To have a clearer picture, here is an example. The compound air-headed, which refers to a silly or foolish person, clearly see that the whole meaning of this compound refers to the type of a person, especially silly or foolish person. However, the whole meaning does not identically refer to elements, air or heat in the compound air-headed, as the whole meaning did not refer to any heat or air. This is the reason why we categorize air-headed as exocentric compounds. Because a compound air-headed does not have heat to refer to as a core or main meaning, the second example, the compound pickpocket, which refers to a person who steals from people's pockets, clearly see that the whole meaning have not been related with the element in the compound pickpocket. The whole meaning of the compound pickpocket do not refer to the action of picking or the pocket, but rather refer to the type of person instead. Another example, four eyes, which refer to a person who wears glasses. This is exocentric compound because the whole meaning have not been similar to one of the elements in the compound four eyes. Another example, four eyes, which refer to a person who wears glasses. This is exocentric compound because the whole meaning has not been similar to one of the elements in the compound four eyes. Let's now turn to the last type of semantic relationship, which is copulative compounds. Copulative compounds are a bit different from endocentric compounds, which are headed compounds, and totally different from exocentric compounds, which are headless compounds. That is to say, in copulative compounds, the two elements of the compounds have equal weight. It means that both elements are head, and the whole meaning of the compounds refer to both of its head. For example, the compound producer-director, which refers to a person who are both a producer and a director, which refer to a person who are both a producer and a director. Or the compound blue-green, which refer to a mixture of the two colors, blue and green. Or dancer-singer, which is a person who is both a dancer and a singer. As you can see, the meaning of these compounds are equal in the way that the meaning refers to both elements in the compound and both elements are head, not just one element like endocentric compound, or not referring to any elements like in headless compound in exocentric compounds. To conclude semantic relationships, there are three subtypes, which are endocentric compound, the headed compound that the whole meaning refers to one of its elements, like in the compound windmill, And the second type is exocentric compounds, which are the headless compound that the whole meaning of the compounds in this type do not refer to the elements in the compounds. For example, air-headed. And the last type of the semantic relationships that we learn is copulative compounds, which is when the whole meaning of the compound equally refer to both elements of the compounds, such as the word producer, director. Now, having explaining about semantic relationship, then moving on now to consider the final topic that we are going to study in this chapter, which is morphological relationships. There are two types of morphological relationships, which are root compounds and synthetic compounds. Let's begin with the root compounds first. Root compounds are the compounds that made up of free morphemes, and the semantic relationship between the two elements in a root compound is not derived from verb. That says the root compounds are root that do not form by having verb derivation in its elements. For example, window shop, coffee cup, red hot, sky blue, babysit. Clearly see that there is no verb derivation in the elements of the example compounds. On the other hand, in the case of synthetic compounds, a synthetic compound is a compound that one of its element or its head is derived from a verb. That is to say, there is a derivational vowel morpheme attached to a verb to form the compound in synthetic compounds. A synthetic compound is also known as a verbal compound. For example, truck driver, gift giving, revenue enhancement. These compounds are the synthetic compounds because of its elements is verb derivation, as in the case of truck driver. We have driver, which is verb derivation, which it is the verb derived first before it is attached by the derivational vowel morpheme er to derive to driver noun. This is what we refer as derived from a verb. Or in the case of gift giving, which giving come from give, and then we add derivational vowel morpheme ing to make the verb give into the noun giving. Or revenue enhancement. The element enhancement, we have verb enhance first, and then it is attached to derivational vowel morpheme ment, ment, to derive into enhancement noun. In summary, it has been shown from this topic that the main difference between root compounds and synthetic compounds is that the synthetic compounds need to have one element that is a verb derivation, but the root compound don't. And that brings us to the end of this chapter. I would like to summarize the content of the compounding again. In this chapter, we study the definition of compound, the difference between a compound and a phrase, and then we move to the functions of compounds, which there are 4 parts of speech that the compounds can be functioned, which are compound nouns, compound verbs, compound adjectives, and compound adverbs. Following compounds and their function, we talk about compound and their relationships. There are 2 relationships of compounds that we talk about, which are semantic relationships and morphological relationships. In terms of semantic relationships, there are 3 subtypes, which are endocentric compounds, exocentric compounds, and copulative compounds. And with regards to the morphological relationships, there are 2 types, which are a root compound and a synthetic compound. So, and that's all for this chapter. In the next chapter, we will talk about morphological processes. So, see you guys. Bye!